You guys never disappoint. I also want to give a great shout out to a couple of STEM cafes from afar in Tulsa somewhere. We have Booker T. Washington that's logging in with us, and we have the Union 9th Center. So welcome to you guys as well, joining us virtually. I want to introduce a really special person. She's been a great advocate for women in STEM. She's a brilliant woman. She's a commercial pilot, so how cool is that? And she's also an author, and she has a really great series of books called Spirit Dance, a really great journey, a book you guys may very well be interested in reading on your own as well. But I want to not take up any more of her time. She's a fantastic woman. We're really, really lucky and thrilled for her to be here this morning. Erin Chappel.
Hey guys, how are you this morning? Good. I'm so glad you're here, like Emily said. I am Erin Chappel, as she said. And during the next 45 minutes, I want to talk to you guys why you're actually built, designed for success in STEM. So like Emily said, I'm a jet captain and I'm a published author. And during my experiences in both those careers, I've discovered a few things I want to share with you guys. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
So if at any point you can't hear me, just shout out and I'll put my inside big voice on, my pilot voice. So during my time in science and tech and math, I've discovered a few things. And one of the most relevant things, I think, which is not very commonly thought of, is that the best way to be prepared for the future, in my mind, is to understand the past, where we came from, why things are the way they are today. So a long time ago, way before all of you were born, even before I was born, which seems like a long time ago, men and women had specific roles. By roles, what I mean is what they were supposed to do with their lives. Because unlike you and I, back in those old days, they didn't have choices about what they wanted to do or how they wanted to spend their time. Does anybody have any idea why? Let me give you a hint. What is the fundamental difference between men and women? Yeah, men and women. What is there one thing that women can do that men can't do? Probably don't want to do. The women have the babies, right? And without the babies, what happens to the human race? Yeah, it's kind of a drag, right? You guys all want to kind of keep going on and be here. So back in my long time ago scenario, before we were all born, when a baby girl entered the world, or a baby boy entered the world, our great-great-great-grandparents taught them that they had to do specific things. For example, young girls were taught, everything they were experienced was focused around protecting and nurturing and taking care of the children, right? Survival. And then the guys, their role was, what do the guys have to do you think? They had to hunt the buffalo, right? Their role was to get food for their family and take care of their family. So, is anybody familiar with what your corpus callosum is? We all have one. Does anybody know? Ma'am? Exactly. It connects both of our sides of the brain together, right? It's kind of like, think of it as the plug-in or the network in between the left and right side of your brain where your thoughts jump back and forth. Now, ladies, I'm going to talk to you first. Females have a very small corpus. Anybody want to guess why? Women have the ability to let their mind go back and forth very fast. And that was as a result of having the role of rearing children, right? So they had to be multitaskers. Now men, you guys have this gigantic corpus, dividing both sides of your brains. Anybody, one of the guys want to step up and think why? What do you think? So if your primary task was to hunt the buffalo, you had to be able to solely focus on that one thing so that you could bring home food to your family and help survive the human race, right? So I want you guys to make a mental earmark right here, because we're going to come back and talk about the corpus later. So can anyone tell me what socialized means? What does it mean to be socialized? Anybody? How about to adapt to the needs and wants of society? So men and women, all of us, we have to contribute to this world that we live in, right? So that's what socialize means. And back in my long time ago scenario, there was no greater need for the human community than to build the next generation. And I know it sounds a little wacky, but make no mistake, this was a very, very important role. Because absent technology and modern conveniences, there was no time for men and women to do anything but take care of the family and the children. Pretty clear-cut roles, right? There weren't any grocery stores to get food, any malls to go and buy clothes or shoes. Everything that men and women had to live, they made with their hands. Kind of makes you guys glad you were born now, right? Instead of then. As time marched forward, something fantastic happened. In the 1800s and the 1900s, the Industrial Revolution swept Europe and North America. What do you guys know about the Industrial Revolution?
It was an outbreak of industry.
Okay, it's an outbreak of industry. And what happened at that point then?
Factories started appearing, newer, efficient ways to manufacture goods were created, and the need for handmade goods was instead replaced by a factory-made t-shirt or shirt or dress or anything.
So what do you think happened to the roles that men and women played? All of a sudden, men and women had more what? What does everybody want? Jobs. What do your parents always complain they don't have enough of? And time, right? So all of a sudden, with the advent of technology, clothes, furniture, transportation, all produced in masses and with the help of machines. So back then, men were still the breadwinners in my long time ago scenario. So the men had more time to go home and help with the child raising. So what do you think happened to the women's role? Was her sole purpose or her sole role to stay home and have children? No, right? She had the help of her husband now for a little more time. And as the machines grew smarter, the men grew smarter, the education level grew, and therefore the wages grew. So women had the chance to maybe even hire someone to help them take care of the children and could go to work part-time or even full-time. During this time, the world population grew about 57%. 700 million people joined the human race. How many people live in Oklahoma today? Do you guys have any idea? How many Oklahoma? Go ahead. 3 million, he's close. 4 million people live in our great state of Oklahoma right now. So if we cloned Oklahoma 175 times and put all those people on the planet, that's how much our population grew during the Industrial Revolution. So back to the women's roles, because the women's and men's roles are really important to us, especially in modern times. We just said that women could work full-time and part-time. What do you think about her choices, or the men's or the family's choices to have children? Could the women choose to have no children? Could they choose to have just one child? Could they choose to have tons of children, right? They had all these choices because they were no longer required by society or socialized to just help procreate the human race. So let's fast forward to modern times. We have so much help via technology, right? Everything that we want, we can almost instantly get at our fingertips. We can go to a grocery store or any number of grocery stores to get food. We can go to restaurants to get us nutrition. We don't have to make our clothes. I don't think, does anybody in here make their clothes anymore? No? No? We have cars and airplanes to get us places. TV and internet to keep us connected and keep us informed. We have all these luxuries. So what that means to all of you is that our choices to do whatever we want in our lives have grown tenfold. So much has changed in such a short period of time, and all of us in this room have had the opportunity to benefit. All right, so I'm going to go back to the corpus thought. Remember when we were talking about how men's corpus callosum is larger? Their brains are divided because they had to do what? Hunt the buffalo, right? So men's brains were designed that way to solely focus on one thing at a time, right? They're going to get their mind on something and they're going to keep going down that road until they've resolved it, all right? So when we're talking about careers in science and tech and engineering and math, I would say that the guys definitely have an advantage in the respect of the fact they can focus on something so intently until they get to the bottom of it. Very strategic thinking, which is one of the skills that we really need to be successful in science, tech, and math. Now, ladies, I want to talk to you a little bit about your corpus. Okay, so yours is much smaller, right? So that the left side and the right side of your brains could work faster because you had to take care of babies. You had to maintain the household. You had to cook that big honkin' buffalo that your husband brought home for food for your family. So you were great multitaskers. So let me ask you this. What do you think is the #1 factor in being successful in science, tech, engineering, and math classes? Ladies, what do you think it is? The ability to multitask. So just as much as the men's corpus being larger, allowing them to strategically think and be very, very successful in science and tech and engineering and math careers, ladies, your brain is actually genetically designed for classes in science, tech, and math. Pretty cool, right? It's a scientific fact. So when we look at it that way, there are advantages to both types of brains for careers in STEM. So with that in mind, I want to ask the whole group a big question. Since knowing that both the males have a great advantage in STEM and the women have this ability to multitask in STEM, why do you think that only 14% of the girls graduating in the spring and only 35% of the boys graduating in spring in Oklahoma, why do you think they only pursue STEM careers? What do you think is stopping the other 70, 80% of your peers from going into STEM careers? Are there some barriers that are holding them back? What are your experiences? Does anybody want to share? Okay, she said maybe they feel discouraged. Why do you think they would feel discouraged? Okay. Okay. So she's saying that it's difficult, right? Would you guys agree? Okay. What about, does anybody else have any ideas why they stopped taking their science section class? Why have you ever felt like quitting? Have you ever just thought that this was too hard, or has this just always been your passion?
I think one problem is sometimes it takes too much time. Some people may not have a passion for it, and some people may just quit in their first year.
Okay.
I remember feeling like that
Okay.
2 years ago when I was in 6th grade.
Okay. Well, let me share, in my piloting days, my first career was a pilot. I flew for 20 years. And during my piloting days, I had just got my first job at an airline. And I was really pumped because this was it took me almost 10 years to get that job. So back to your statement of it takes a long time sometimes to get where you're going in STEM careers, absolutely true. So here I am, first year at an airline. I go on vacation with some friends down to Bermuda. And I don't know if you guys know this, but pilots can jump seat or fly in the cockpit of other airlines. As soon as you get your badge from the airlines, I can go up to any registration desk or ticket counter in the airport and say, can you put me on a standby list? I want a jump seat in the cockpit and I can fly anywhere I want for free. So that was perfect because I was a brand new pilot, not making a lot of money, and I wanted to travel. So there I was, coming back from Bermuda, had a great time with my friends, all dressed in my sundress, probably had a pretty good tan, and I'm in Miami International Airport, and I go up to the ticket desk, and I say, I hand her my pilot badge, and I'm real proud, you know, because it took me a long time to get that badge. And I say to the gate agent, can I please check and see if there's any availability in the cockpit? And she looks at me and she goes, okay. So she does her typing on the computer, and she comes back and she goes, oh, I'm really sorry, we don't have any space available. And I said, oh, okay, that's fine. Can I get on the standby list for the next flight? And she said, sure. So I took my badge and I went and sat down, and you know, sometimes when you fly standby, you have to be willing to sit all day. So I went ahead, and another gentleman walks up behind me. He was a pilot, I could tell. He had his bag with all the stickers on it. That's how you guys can tell pilots out of uniform, by the way. And he walks up to the counter and gives his badge and says to her, ma'am, can I have a standby pass for the cockpit? She types in, she goes, oh yes, sure, sir, no problem at all. The reason why this is relevant, I think, to your statement about how hard sometimes being in a career like this can be, I had a lot of options at that time. I could get mad. I could get off the plane and be like, oh, that guy was such a jerk. He didn't respect me. He didn't do all these things. But I had another choice, and I went that direction. I decided that this man quizzing me for 2.5 hours in the cockpit made me a better pilot. Right? So the reason why I'm telling you this story is that anytime you pursue something that's a little different from the norm, anytime you go for something that's a little bit unconventional, you're going to struggle a little bit. You're going to meet people and you're going to attempt things that are difficult. And you're going to come across challenges. But I want to let you know that you have choices, and how you decide to approach how you were critiqued, or when you come across difficult teachers that perhaps don't have the same experiences as you, that you need to understand that not everybody's on the same mindset as it relates to change, as it relates to careers in STEM, as it relates to you being different than the masses. So remember when we were talking about being socialized and how society has evolved, technology has evolved really fast? You know, sometimes people's mindsets don't evolve as quickly as technology goes. So you must understand that when you come across someone who makes it a little bit more difficult for you or challenges you in ways that maybe I got challenged by that captain, that it's not that they're trying to be difficult towards you, it's they just haven't caught up with the times yet, just like sometimes how society thinks. So I'm going to throw it back at you guys again. Is there anybody else that has any ideas about why it's maybe challenging in STEM, or why, let's talk to any of the ladies, why girls? Why is there only 14% of you ladies that step up? I'm so glad to see you here, but and why do you think that it's different? Any clue? Okay.
You're getting discrimination from both male and female. You would think another female would push you and try to encourage you to go into the STEM field, but since you're a woman, intimidated by it.
Okay. Okay. So why? So you said women are intimidated, and you say men are what? Why do you think the men are? What are the men doing?
Men, I mean, I guess a lot of men are intimidated too, but it's for a woman to go into this STEM field. It's hard to get acceptance into it because a lot of female and men too are really pushers.
Okay. Okay. Has anybody else experienced that? No? Okay. Okay, I'll tell you another piloting story. I've got a lot of them. So I am now got a really great job. I am a captain on a corporate jet for a big corporation in Chicago. Okay, this is like a big deal. This is 15 years into my career, and I'm real proud. So I'm standing on the tarmac. I've got my uniform on, 4 stripes on my sleeves. I'm pretty impressed with myself at this point. Really cool. Not because of my ego, but because I worked really hard to get there. So I'm standing there waiting for the board of directors to come, and my board member marches out to the airplane, shakes my hand. I shake his hand. I'm like, welcome, sir. He gets on the jet, and I walk in, and I grab him a cup of coffee because that's what we do as corporate pilots. We're not just pilots. We actually serve our passengers. And so I give him his coffee, and I tell him about the safety aspects of the airplane. And he looks at me and he goes, "You coming with us?" And I look at him and I said, "Can't go without me." So I walk up to the cockpit, I buckle myself in the captain's seat, and I fly him to Atlanta, Georgia. He gets off the airplane, he looks at me and he goes, "Have a nice day, ma'am." So again, someone who I had the choice of thinking, wow, this guy, he thought I was a flight attendant again, clearly, right? So that's why he asked me if I was going. And when you talk about discrimination or you talk about intimidation from other people, I think it mostly comes from not being on stable footing and not knowing enough about yourself, like who you are. So if you are discouraged by the fact that someone tries to discredit what your qualifications are, I think you have the choice to decide, do I get mad, do I get angry, do I quit, or do I just realize again that this person isn't as far along and they're not going to knock you off your path. Anybody else? Okay. So I've talked about a lot of things this morning. There are just a few important points I want you guys to remember, and especially when she's talking about discrimination or intimidation, whether it be from male or the female side. And I just want to let you guys know too that the discrimination and the intimidation just isn't on the female side. I know that it happens oftentimes for the males too. So the number one thing I want you guys to know is that no matter what anyone says, every single one of you is capable. And even though society may write a script, or a certain industry might say it's more for boys or more for girls, you don't have to buy into that. You can write your own script, but you're going to need to step out and step up and be extraordinary in your efforts. Write your own story. Number 2, it's a proven fact that both styles of brains are definitely helpful in being successful in STEM. Doesn't matter if you have the small corpus or the large corpus. Remember, the guys have the ability to focus. The women have the ability to multitask. But what I want to tell you that in my experience, when we get back to the men and women thing, is that the best flight crews that I've ever flown in, the best creative collaborations that I've worked on as an author have always been combined of both men and women. We all bring something unique and something fantastic to the table. So guys, I would encourage you to find women to pair up with, and the same thing with women. If you guys can work together, you can be extraordinary teams. Number 3, this comes back to the being on stable footing. You need to know your stuff. I mean, do your homework. And I mean, just not do the basics of your homework. I mean, get to the bottom of it. Just don't get it done to turn it in. I want you to understand, just like that captain quizzed me on the airplane, what if I had not known the airplane inside out? How would have I felt sitting up in that cockpit for 2.5 hours with him quizzing me about something I just kind of scooted by on? So do the legwork, ask the questions, and get answers. Get all the way down to the bottom of it so that if you're ever put on the spot and someone asks you questions, you'll have no problem. You won't take that quizzing as some sort of critique. You'll actually take it as an opportunity to get feedback to be better. Number 4, if you cross paths with people who tell you you can't, you're not smart enough, you're not tall enough, this isn't for girls, you might get dirty, you might get hurt, I want you guys to understand and have it pegged in your mind that this is just socialization again. It's just society. This person hasn't caught up. I don't want you to stop. I suggest that you turn on a heel, you find another teacher, you find a coach, you find a parent, you find a boss, you find a mentor who is further along that can encourage you and support you in your STEM path. Listen, right now you're, 15, 16, 17, 18 maybe years old, but someday you'll be nearly 50 like me. I'm standing in front of you living proof that your lives can be this awesome, incredible adventure. Yes, it will be hard. Yes, you'll struggle at times. But when you're in your 50s and 60s, you will turn around and look back and understand and be delighted that you put the effort in, you put the time in, you didn't stop, and you pursued a life and career based in STEM. So I know we don't have much time left, but I want to issue guys a challenge. Is anybody in? Yeah? You guys up for it? Okay. I want you to close your eyes. Every single one of you, close them, close them, close them, close them. I want you to think of something that you're curious about. Something you've never tried before. Something that might even scare you a little. Something that you may even have to build up the courage to ask your parents, a family member, a coach, a pastor, a friend, a teacher to show you how to do. Do you have that image locked in your mind? Yeah? Okay, open your eyes. Look at me. Everybody looking at me? Starting this moment, I challenge you to work towards obtaining that goal. Aware that you won't likely accomplish it on the first try, or the second, or the third. I challenge you to keep going, though, until you have gotten over that hurdle. And once you've mastered that task, like you know it inside and out, like Captain Pilot inside and out, I want you to stop and pat yourself on the back, or bust a move and do your victory dance, whatever it is you like to do. And then I want you guys to settle down and balance out, and I want you to set your sights on another goal. You can do all of these things. I just don't want you to stop. Does anybody have any questions for me?
I do.
Okay.
Did you have a mentor?
I did not.
You were the pioneer.
I was the pioneer. So when I went to college, I have a degree in aeronautical science. There were 4 girls and 3,500 guys. So I did not see another female my entire time in college in any of my classes. And then when I got out of college, there were 1% of female pilots in the industry. So I had never even met another pilot until I was probably 5 or 6 years into my career. And then this young woman brought up about women not necessarily always helping other women. My first corporate job, there was a woman there who was, had been in industry longer than me. She was much older, and she had been kind of beaten down a little bit. Like, she didn't really have her wits about her as it relates to how talented and how unique she really was. And she tried to get me fired. And so I understand what you're saying about women working against women or other people working against other people. But understand, she didn't do that because it had something to do with me. She just did that because she was afraid, and she also did it because that was the culture she was raised in. So I talked to you about choices earlier. Again, I could have chosen to be mad. I could have chosen to lash out at her. I could have chosen to quit, right? Those are some options. Viable, right? Who wants to be somewhere where nobody wants you? But I chose to stand my ground. I chose to be the best version of myself. And actually, at the end of it, we turned out to be, and we still are, very good friends. So there weren't a lot of mentors for me. But with the STEM Alliance here in town, I know that they focus a lot on ladies, but they also can help out if any men too. I mean, you guys need to find someone who you look up to, someone who you respect, someone that can guide you. Because you know what? There are a lot of questions that come up, and not just technical questions about your classes or skills, but how do I handle myself when I get into situations where I'm uncomfortable? Men, if you've never been on a team with a bunch of ladies, how do you know how to conduct yourself? What are the protocols? How do you act? Women, just like you come up against discrimination, or if you come up against just a difficult situation where you feel awkward or you're uncomfortable, it's not enough just to know the information, but you have to know the social part of it too. So find yourself a mentor. Talk to your teachers. Talk to other women in industry. I am around women all the time that want to help out, that are dying to say, you know, hey ladies, we want to show you, we want to help you, we want to be in contact with you. So understand that that is one of the most important, easiest way to get the answers to the test, right? Who doesn't want the answers to the test ahead of time? Who doesn't want to know what's coming in front of you so you can be prepared, right? So I encourage you again, and I'll challenge a second challenge, if you will, that if you start feeling like you don't have the skill or you're not on stable footing, find yourself a mentor. Anybody else? Ma'am. She asked what my favorite thing about flying a plane is, and I'll tell you what it is. It's the fact that I am completely free. I can be anything I want to be. I'm in a jet. It doesn't matter if I'm male, female, old, young, stylish, you know, if I'm wearing my pajamas. It just doesn't matter. Airplane doesn't care. All that matters at the end of the day is that I have the skills to maneuver this amazing machine. I have the skills to handle anything that happens in this amazing machine. And I'm totally free. Doesn't matter what anyone thinks of me. Doesn't matter what anybody says about me. It's just me and that plane. So that's my favorite thing about flying. And by the way, because I have all my science and math background, that allowed me to have that freedom. So it's more than just being techie, being nerdy, being smart. It's about having freedom to do whatever you want, whenever you want. And you don't have to be scared, because you can do it. You can figure it out, always. Anybody else? Ma'am.
What inspired you to be a pilot?
She asked what inspired me to be a pilot. Now this is going to sound crazy again. I guess by now you know I have a really good sense of humor, but I'm from an Irish family, so immigrant family, and a lot of my cousins never left the house until they got married. Can you imagine that? Talk about the old times. I was a little concerned that my parents weren't going to let me go away to college. And luckily for me, I was smart enough. I went to a guidance counselor in high school and I told her, I said, listen, I've got to do something extraordinary so that I can go away and be the best I can be. My parents aren't going to go for it unless it's something really extraordinary. So I took an aptitude test because I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had never been in a small airplane. I had no idea, you know, what was what back then. I could put gas in my car. That was about my tech level at that point, so maybe air on a good day. But she had me take an aptitude test called Myers-Briggs, and after I took the test, it didn't say you should be a pilot, but it said you are very strong in these areas. And this woman, just like our crew here and your teachers at school, there's a big wave going across the country, just like the STEM initiative, that said girls can do anything that boys can do. So I was like, well, okay. And luckily I met her, and she told me, you know what, I think you could be a pilot. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and try that. So that's really how I became inspired to become a pilot. I wasn't prepared at all, and that's why I would encourage you, when I went away to college, I was like, oh my God, you know, these guys had worked on engines, these guys some of them had been in the military, they were on the GI Bill, they could probably build the engine, and here's me, I'm just still trying to open the hood on the car, where is the engine? But I'll tell you what, you know what I mean? I didn't want to quit. I wanted to learn. So I used to stay after school every day, and I found guys that would help me and teach me and help me along. I made a lot of friends that could show me things that I didn't know. Yeah, was I embarrassed? Of course. Yeah, did my teachers humiliate me in class? Absolutely. You know, they're like, what a knucklehead, you know? Yeah, I was a knucklehead. But I wasn't a knucklehead because I wasn't trying, I just didn't know any better. And that's when a mentor would come in and really be helpful to me. Had I been able to get a mentor at that time, it would have saved me a lot of uneasiness, a lot of discomfort, and I think I would have, again, been much more confident and on stable footing. Anybody else? What is my personality type? I like to call myself an alpha introvert. I know, that's kind of crazy. I'm not the best about standing out in front of people, so this is really good for me, actually. I tend to be very gregarious. I've learned that that's what I need to do in certain situations, but then I go back in my little cubby hole and I read, or I hang out, or I spend time alone. So yeah, I'm an alpha introvert.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. I appreciate your time and your attention.
You guys have any questions? I know you have to get to class. Erin will be here for a few minutes. Did you sign in?